Shabbat Shalom now. Some like it hot.
That was very good. I mean, thank you. It wasn't very good. It was good. It was okay. It was good. It was good.
Hi everyone, Shabbat Shalom. I'll have you know that we have a surprise gift for you, because it was a surprise for me as well. Because I thought, for some reason on our schedule, I was going to do the service by myself, but Cantor Muchnick is here, so you're welcome. So I just want to say, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Next time, let me know
That you didn't have to be here. You weren't on the schedule. Yeah. So as he got here, I said, you know who's going to be the happiest? Congregants. So that you're here. So Cantor Muchnick is here. Even though he usually is.
This is really loud.
He usually is. Yeah. Everything's hot. It's hot in the sanctuary too. But it was, but yeah. So, all right, great. We have a brand new computer. Yes, we have a brand new computer. It is interesting how far computers have come. Buy it on Amazon for a very nominal price, and you get a fully functional computer. And here it is. So, new computer, that means hypothetically, things will work. Hypothetically, we'll be able to do. Hi, for those who on the live stream, hello. I think the live stream is working too. So the new owl is here, and the new computer is here, and hypothetically, everything. Whoo. So 5,000-6,000 people are probably 5 or 6. Probably is usually the number. 5 or 6 people. Oh, the word for owl is very good. Yeah, you ready for it? It's yenshuf. Yenshuf. Yenshuf is a good. Yenshuf. Yenshuf is a good. I don't know. How do you come up with the word owl? Owl's a weird word. How did we come up with the word owl? All right, let's start our service. So happy that you're here. Shabbat Shalom. Hope you had a nice start to Shabbat. If you were here last night, you got to meet Sharon, Cantor Sharon. She's going to be our sub on the rare occasion that Cantor Muchnick is not on the bima with us on Fridays typically. A woman named Sharon Alkali Libovici will be on the bima, and so she was there last night, and she did a wonderful job, and she sang beautifully, and she literally flew in that morning from Dubai. So she was a little tired last night, and even being that exhausted, she did a wonderful job, and we met her husband and her daughter, and it was very nice. So she is Israeli, yes. Yeah, you could hear her Hebrew has the her Hebrew is very good when she speaks it. She sounds very authentic. Very authentic. Yes, yeah, because of the Broadway show, it's gone to Cantor's head, and now he's really exploring his other options, and he's trying to get onto Funny Girl on Broadway right now. So, what you were usually looking for the page? You usually share the page. Now you're looking for the page. Interesting. Modeh Ani. That is not where I am though. Yes, we are on Modeh Ani, but I was in Shabbat 1. I should go to Shabbat 2. 170 is where we're beginning. 170.
Modeh ani lefanecha, melecha evekayam, shechezarta binishmati bechemla, bechemla. רבה אמונתך. מודה אני לפניך, מלך חי וקיים, שחזרת בי נשמתי בחמלה, בחמלה רבה אמונתך. רבה אמונתך.
Nisim b'chol yom, our daily blessings and miracles, 175.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לשכל ובינה להבחין בין יום ובין לילה.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, פוקח עברים.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, מתיר אסורים.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, זוקף כפופים.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, רוקח הארץ על המים.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, המכין מצעדי גבר.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, מלביש ערומים.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, הנותן ליעף כוח.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, המעביר שינה מעיני ותנומה מעפעפי.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שעשני בצלם אלוהים.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שעשני בן חורים.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שעשני ישראל.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, עוזר ישראל בגבורה.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, עוטר ישראל בתפארה.
אמן.
Let's do El Devarim again. That was fun last time. 180. 180.
אלו דברים
שלהם שיעור, אלו דברים שלהם שיעור, אלו דברים שלהם שיעור, ואלו הן.
אלו דברים
דברים שלהם שיעור, אלו דברים שלהם שיעור, אלו דברים שלהם שיעור, ואלו הן.
כיבוד
אב
ואם
וגמילות חסדים והשכמת בית המדרש שחרית וערבית והכנסת אורחים וביקור חולים והכנסת כלה
ולוויית המת. אלו
דברים שלהם שיעור,
אלו דברים שאין להם שיעור.
אלו דברים שלהם שיעור, ואלו הן עיון תפילה והבאת שלום
בין אדם לחברו ותלמוד תורה כנגד
כולם. ותלמוד תורה כנגד כולם, 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 ותלמוד תורה כנגד כולם. That wasn't terrible. No one ran from the room. No one ran from the room. That was pretty good. Nice. Yeah. Woohoo. Psuke Zimra, 183.
ברוך שאמר והיה עולם.
ברוך הוא.
ברוך עושה וראשית.
ברוך אומר ועושה.
ברוך גוזר ומקיים.
ברוך מרחם על הארץ.
ברוך מרחם על הבריות.
ברוך משלם שכר טוב לרעיו.
ברוך חי לעד וקיים לנצח.
ברוך פודה מציל ברוך שמו.
Blessed is the one who spoke and the world came to be.
Blessed is the one.
Blessed is the one who continually authors creation.
Blessed is the one whose word is deed.
Blessed is the one who decrees and fulfills.
Blessed is the one who's compassionate towards the world.
Blessed is the one who's compassionate towards all creatures.
Blessed is the one who rewards the reverent.
Blessed is the one who exists for all time ever enduring.
Blessed is the one who redeems and saves. Blessed is God's name.
Baruch atah Adonai, Melech mehulal
Batishbachot. We continue Shochen Ad, middle of page 192. 192.
Shochen ad maharom vekadosh shemo vechatuv ranenu tzadikim Adonai laisharim navatehila befi yesharim tzitalal uvdivrei tzadikim titbarach ובלשון חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש, ובמחלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל. ברינה יתפאר שמך מלכנו בכל דור ודור. ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו. האל המלך הגדול והקדוש בשמיים ובארץ, ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול בתשבחות, אל ההודעות אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך אלכי העולמים.
Chatzi Kaddish 194.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה,
אמן.
והולמה דברה חירותי, וימליך מלכותי,
וחייכון וביומייכון,
וחיי לכל בית ישראל. בגלה
בגלה ובזמן קריב.
ואמרו
אמן.
יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם לא מהלמיה יתברך, יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל, שמי דקדושה
נריחו
לעילה, מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה. ואמרו
Amen. Continue with the Baruch Hu 195.
Lai la lai 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 lai. Lai la lai 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 lai. Lai la lai 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 la lai 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 lai. Lai la lai 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 lai. Lai la lai 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 la lai 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 lai. Lai la lai 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 lai. Baruch hu et Adonai Hamevorach. Baruch Adonai Hamevorach. Hamevorach leolam va'ed. Hamevorach, Hamevorach, leolam va'ed.
Please be seated. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or vorech choshech, oseh shalom uvore et hakol. Ahava Rabbah 198.
Ahava Rabbah Avtanu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chemla gedola v'tzera, Chamalta aleinu, ba'avur avoteinu ve'imotenu, shebatchu v'cha, ותלמידיהם חוקי חיים, והארננו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחן לבבנו לאהבה וליראה את שמך, ולא נבוש ולא ניכלם ולא ניכשל לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו, נגילה ונשמחה נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך. ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בעמו ישראל, באהבה.
200.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kivod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed.
201.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, ושבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לתוצפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
202.
ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם, ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציצית הכנף בצל תכלת, והיה לכם לציצית, וריתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם,
אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. מי כמוך, our song of redemption, 204.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש. נורא תהילות עושה פלא, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים, לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל, תומה בעזרת ישראל, עובדי חרמך, יהודה וישראל, גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל, ברוך אתה אדוני, גא ישראל.
Amidah 205.
אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא, אל העליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל. מחכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, צומח נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בגבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישוע, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל.
Kedusha is on 208.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש קדוש קדוש, אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ, כבודו. אדיר אדירנו אדוני, אדוננו מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. איכנו אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון, לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גון לך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גון לך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש, ושמך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש, לא ימוש לעולם ועד. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גון לך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גון לך, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
We continue silently now, beginning here on page 210 through page 219. When you're finished, please be seated.
Shalom, shalom bimromav. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Ose shalom, shalom bimromav. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amen, amen. Ose shalom, shalom bimromav. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen.
We continue with Seder Kriyat Torah for Shabbat morning, which it is. So we are on page 244.
Ein kamocha va'elohim Adonai ve'kema'asecha malchutecha malchut kol olamim umemshaltecha bechol dor v'hador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai himloch le'olam ha'ed. Adonai oz le'amo yitein. Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Al harachamim heitiv avitzoncha et Zion. Timneh chomot Yerushalayim ki v'chol levad batachnu. Melech Elram v'nisa Adonai Amin.
246.
Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udvar Adonai miYerushalayim. Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo, Gadlu l'Adonai iti, uneromema shemo yachdav. Lecha Adonai hagedula ve'hagevura ve'atiferet ve'ahor. Ki chol bashamayim uvaret, ki chol bashamayim uvaret lecha Adonai hamamlacha ve'amitnaseh lechol rosh. Romemu, Romemu, Adonai Eloheinu. Vehishtachavu, vehishtachavu, ladom raglav kadoshu. Romemu, Romemu, Adonai Eloheinu. Vehishtachavu, vehishtachavu, lehar kodsho ki kadosh. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu.
Please be seated. We are in the Torah portion of Emor, which can be found in Leviticus 21. Leviticus 21. Leviticus 21. Leviticus 21. Leviticus 21. I think this is the penultimate Torah portion in Leviticus, I believe. The penultimate. I love penultimate. Makes me sound smart. Penultimate. Could you please bring some water to the chapel? I don't think so. That's not right in my book. That's not right. Susie, you're an Aliyah, aren't you? Today? Yeah? All right, come on up. I know. I just got allergies, and I don't know what's going on. Tamod. Sarah bat Chaim v'Leah l'Aliyah Torah.
Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Merach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe emor el hakohanim b'nei Aaron ve'amarta alehem le'nefesh lo yitama ba'amav ki im lish'ero hakarov elav le'imo u'laviv uvino uvito u'lachiv ve'la'achoto haptula hakrova elav asher lo hayta le'ish la yitama Lo yitama ba'al be'amav leheichalo.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Amen. Shakach. Shakach. Thanks, Susie. We are going to raise and dress 252. We want to bring up our raise and dress crew, or you want to? Yeah, are you good to raise and dress? Yeah, want to raise and dress? All right. 252, and together we stand.
וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. תורה, 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 ציווה לנו משה. תורה, 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 ציווה לנו משה. Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe.
Shkoach, shkoach.
For now. All right, so we are in Emor. We're going to look at the beginning of Emor for a few moments, and then we're going to jump. We're going to stay in Emor, obviously, but we're going to jump and look at a whole other chapter. But we're going to just start at the beginning of Emor, chat about it a little bit, like the structure of it and who it's connecting to, and then we're going to go look at what I think is a pretty cool section in another chapter, and I'm going to have the assistance of the late, great Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, who has some great commentary, and we'll be talking about it a little bit. So, yes. Yeah?
Do the commentators say anything about why it says Emor El HaKohanim instead of Daber El HaKohanim?
It's tell them, not speak to them. So it's a different structure. Vaydaber is like talk to them, Emor is like tell them this is how it's going to be. In Emor, I'm saying Vaydaber is speak to them, right? Emor is tell them. So it's more of an instruction that is. What does your English what does your English say? Yours says
Speak to them.
Yours says speak. Yeah, I mean it does say speak or say to them, say or speak to them, as opposed to yeah. No, I guess no, it doesn't. I didn't hand out the other translations, but the other books, but it's yeah, it's a little more of a direct line to them. But let's do the blessing first, then we'll get deeper. So Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Okay, now we're official. Now we can delve more deeply into Emor. Emor, as I mentioned, is the penultimate Torah portion. This year, because this is the year where some Torah portions will couple. Remember, so last week they coupled. This week it's solo. Emor is by itself, and then next week they're going to couple also. So even though there are two more Torah portions left in Exodus, in Leviticus, they're coupled, so it's really one more Torah portion, if that makes sense. So next week is the last week of Leviticus, and then we go into Numbers. But it's a double next week. Bahar B'chukotai is next week. Okay, so this is a solo this week, and if you remember last week, Kedoshim was speaking to everyone. No one was free from what it was saying, and you'll see that this week is a special group that's really focused on, and it's not really necessarily for everyone. So it's an interesting angle to look at why not everyone has to hear this, only the priests. So we'll talk about that. Okay, please, take it away.
The Eternal One said to Moses, "Speak to the priests, the sons of Aaron, and say to them, none shall defile himself for any dead person among his kin, except for the relatives that are closest to him, his mother, his father, his son, his daughter, and his brother. Also for a virgin sister, close to him because she has not married, for her he may defile himself. But he shall not defile himself as a kinsman by marriage, and so profane himself."
Okay, what is this? What's going on? So what's this whole opening? So first of all, who's talking? God. Great. Okay. Who's God talking to? Moses. Okay. And who's Moses now only speaking to, really?
The priests.
The priests, right? Aaron and the sons. Which sons? Right? How many? Two. Right? Because the other two are died in Shemini, right? So they're only so it's Aaron and two sons. Yes? Okay. Yeah.
Passages like this always seem to me to be like anti-Canaanite practices.
Okay.
This is what the locals are doing, don't do it.
Nice.
To separate people.
Nice. Okay, good. So and it's about defiling yourself. So what does that mean, defile yourself? Exactly. I think that's a very well described. It's ritually, would you say ritually? Ineligible. Perfect. By the way, that still exists today. You can become ritually ineligible. And because you can still defile yourself and become ritually unclean in that ineligibility, and that's why there is a mikvah. Exactly. Because the mikvah can restore you from ineligibility to eligibility. That's the job of a mikvah. It has many other jobs too. It's one of the coolest things ever in Judaism, but it's one of the, and it's what transfers you. And so here is the list. So yes, I think it's a nice way to also separate them from what's going on around them. Don't forget Leviticus, by the way, they're not moving. So they're sitting, they're camped. The Israelites are camped for all Leviticus. They're moving in Exodus. They're going to move again in Numbers after next week in 2 weeks. But right now, they're camped. So what they're saying is that when you start to move, thank you. When they start to move, they're going to be around other people, and your ineligibility or your eligibility are going to be based on what you're doing. And so, particularly regarding the priests. So it's going to transfer, by the way, over the years that the defilement works for anyone. So you don't have to be a Kohen or a Levite or anything. You can be anything, but that system still exists today, which is why if you know of not even just ultra-Orthodox, just more and more traditional people, particularly a man and wife, that's why they have a special king-size bed that has a separator. So in that week, when the woman is ritually unclean, the bed separates and there turns into two twins. And then when that 2 weeks is over, because it's a 2-week window, then the beds get put together again and reattached. Correct. She has to go to the mikvah prior. So 1 week of, we're all adults, 1 week of menstruation, 1 week following menstruation, and then mikvah. And then, which is also why, by the way, probably traditional people have lots of children, because what's happening about a week after the menstruation? The woman is, what's the O word? Ovulating. Right. So if she's ovulating and it's been 2 weeks since they've even touched each other, then it makes sense around that window that there are 900 kids for a lot of people who are more traditional, because that window just works. And there's no such, you can't use any sort of protection of any kind. You're not allowed. So there's no such thing. And so There you go. And it all connects back to these concepts. So, all right. So who are the people? So who is the list here? There's a list of people, of important people. Who are the important people, and what categories do they fall into defilement or non-defilement? What do we got? Oh, you have a question first. Go ahead, Ron. Well, here, this is for us to discuss here, and then, by the way, for Judaism to discuss in perpetuity on what, I mean, the Talmud goes into the most detailed explanation of ineligibility versus eligibility of when you become clean and unclean, males and females, right? So it's all over the place. Yeah. So it's a good question, but we get a little bit here, and then we get volumes of it afterwards. What makes a male unclean? Touching a female that's unclean. That's one. A dead body. Having a nocturnal emission makes them unclean. And there's a list. There's a whole list. And by the way, there are conversations in the Talmud that talk about what happens in and around the mikvah also, because you have to be careful in certain bathhouses that aren't mikvahs. And so there's defilement that can happen in a lot of different places. So there's a whole list of defilements for men and for women. And then the only way to be eligible again, to use your term, you have to go to the mikvah. There's no other option. You have to go to the mikvah. It's the only thing that will transition you from the state of unclean to a state of clean. That's its job. Like I said, among other things, which is why it's so cool. But it also does conversions. It does But its main job is a transitioner. I'll say that. The main job of a mikvah is to transition you from one state to another. When I was in Phoenix and there was a mikvah in Phoenix, we used it because the kids could use it before they became bar and bat mitzvah, because it was kind of cool to go to the mikvah before, because they were transitioning from being non-adults to adults in the Jewish community. So we used it there all the time, because you were just transitioning from one state to another. Did you ever do mikvah? Never? Yeah. I've done it 3 times. So I did it before I got married. I did it the day before I became a rabbi. And once when we made the mikvah in Phoenix, I wanted to try it. So, yeah, because I went to not trying it to trying it. That was my transition. Yes?
Is the mikvah a part of the synagogue, or is it a separate venue, and is it a paid service, or is it something Jews are entitled to when they go?
Yes, all of that. Everything you just said. They all vary. Some are connected to synagogue, some are freestanding, some have no cost, some are underwritten by certain agencies, some cost. Some in Phoenix, I'll tell you that we had something called the Mikvah Society. So synagogues could pay in annually to us, and then once they did, all of their members had access to the mikvah because they paid into the Mikvah Society. But otherwise, it was a pay per service, because maintaining a mikvah is extremely expensive.
Where's the closest one to here?
So there are several close to here, but we are, to use the term, ineligible to use them, because they are run by Orthodox agencies, and so they would probably ask you a lot of questions on, are you Jewish? How do you know? Do you have a Jewish mother? How are you affiliated? And if you ticked a box they didn't like, then you were ineligible. You would be ineligible to use the mikvah. So the answer is the ocean. There are no mikvaot anywhere near us. But I can't believe it that in South Florida, in all the counties. The closest one is Phoenix, I guess. The closest one is in Phoenix. So nothing in Dade, nothing in Broward, nothing in Palm Beach County. You would think that all the Jews that live in these 3 counties, there's not one mikvah. And he's talking about years and years about building a mikvah. It's at least $5 million to build a mikvah. So it's not a cheap endeavor, because you have to do plumbing and the thing, and it has to be built a certain way, and you have to maintain it. So there has to be like a whole fund, because it's very expensive to maintain a mikvah. So extremely expensive. All right. So who are the people? Who are the most important people this is discussing? What's the list here? What do we have? So it says, none shall defile himself or any dead person among his kin. What does that mean? What does that sentence mean? Well, it says, none shall defile himself. or any dead person among his kin, except for his relatives. What does that mean? That he will be unclean or he won't be unclean. Yes. So what does that mean? What does that sentence mean? None shall defile himself for any dead person among his kin, except for the relatives that are closest to him.
So we can't touch the dead body except for
who?
the mother, father.
Yes, good.
Child.
Except for this list. So this list, he does not become impure. Well, it does, but that's a separate section. So first it says closest to him. So mother, father, son, daughter, brother. So those are fine, right? And then now it gets to 3. What's interesting about 3? So it says also for a virgin sister close to him because she has not married. For her, he may defile himself. What does that mean?
She doesn't have a husband who would defile himself for her.
Right.
You know, God.
Yes, exactly. So can she cause him to be impure or no?
No,
Which one? Yes or no?
she cannot cause him to be impure.
If she's a virgin, can she cause him to be impure or no?
No.
No? Okay. Well, who said yes? Does someone say yes or everyone says no?
Yes, and then he cleans the body, for example, after the person's dead. Then that particular category is
Well, that's
defile himself in that.
he,
He's not allowed to defile himself if his sister had been married.
right. Okay. Nice. So, and poor sister, because you said it. Why the sister? Because exactly, because then she becomes part of the husband's family, and she's no longer part of that family. So she's no longer connected to that crew. Don't use her 2023 hat. It's going to just frustrate you. Use the biblical hat. It's just don't do it. So it makes me upset too. Just leave it. Otherwise, whew. All right. Good. Okay. I just want to look at 5 for a second, and then we're going to jump. Go to look at verse 5.
They shall not shave smooth any part of their heads, or cut the side growth of their beards, or make gashes in their flesh.
What's this? What's this the origin of?
Payas?
Peot. And? Beards. And? What's a gash in your flesh?
Tattoos?
Tattoo, exactly. All right, so here is the origin of it. There are a million conversations that can be had about tattoos now in modern Judaism. There's a lot more lenient than they were 20 years ago or even 30 years ago. It's a whole different world. However, this is the proof text. This is the text that causes the conversation for us to be had. This is it right here. Okay, good. We're going to jump now. All right, we're jumping. We're jumping to chapter 23. Same Torah portion, chapter 23. Chapter 23. Chapter 23. Chapter 23. Chapter 23. Chapter 23. Are we good? Mm-hmm. All right. Here we go. Chapter 23.
The Eternal One spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the Israelite people, and say to them, These are my fixed times, the fixed times of the Eternal, which you shall proclaim as sacred occasions. Whoops. Sorry.
Thin pages.
On 6 days work may be done, but on the 7th day there shall be a Sabbath of complete rest, a sacred occasion. You shall do no work. It shall be a Sabbath of the Eternal throughout your settlements. These are the set times of the Eternal, the sacred occasions, which you shall celebrate each at its appointed time. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month at twilight, there shall be a Passover offering to the Eternal, and on the 15th day of that month, the Eternal's feast of unleavened bread. You shall eat unleavened bread for 7 days. On the first day you shall celebrate a sacred occasion. You shall not work at your occupations. 7 days you shall make offerings by fire to the Eternal. The seventh day shall be a sacred occasion. You shall not work at your occupations. The Eternal One spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the Israelite people and say to them, When you enter the land that I am giving to you, and you reap its harvest, you shall bring the first sheaf of your harvest to the priest. He shall elevate the sheaf before the Eternal for acceptance in your behalf. The priest shall elevate it on the day after the Sabbath. On the day that you elevate the sheaf, you shall offer as a burnt offering to the Eternal a lamb of the first year without blemish. The meal offering with it shall be 2/10 of a measure of choice flour with oil mixed in. An offering by fire of pleasing odor to the Eternal, and the libation with it shall be of wine, 1/4 of a hin. Until that very day you shall have brought the offering of your God. You shall eat no bread or parched grain or fresh ears. It is a law for all time throughout the ages in all your settlements.
Thank you. A lot of reading. Thank you very much. All right. So what is this? What is all of this? What is this big section that Linda just read? So there's Passover. Did you hear Pesach in there? Mm-hmm. So Pesach's in there. Nice. Good. What else? Shabbat's in there. All right. Great. What else is in there so far? So Sukkot is coming. Yes, it sounds like Sukkot. Sukkot's coming, so it's, what do you think it is if it's not Sukkot? That's similar to Sukkot, and it's not Pesach. So it must be, what's the third option? Shavuot. It's a little bit of Shavuot. Yeah, there's a little connection to Shavuot in there. All right, good. And, all right, so that's so far. We're going to get to Sukkot. Sukkot's coming. All right, but let's just look at the opening part. So at the opening part, it says of 23, it says, and God spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the who's hearing this now suddenly?
All the people.
Everyone's hearing this. So the first section was just the priests, and now everyone's hearing this because this is now something super cool, in my opinion, that is now going to remain fascinating throughout all the way to now. And here is this structure. In 2b, it says, "These are my fixed times, and fixed times of the Lord of God, which you shall proclaim as sacred occasions." So here it says, Mo'adei Adonai. And so what's a moed? You know, it's a holiday. Yes, it's a holiday, but it is more than a holiday. What does the Torah tell us it is? What's the language? Do you have the same language as what is sacred? Was yours a sacred occasion or a fixed time? What does it say? A sacred occasion. Similar. So mine says a fixed time. I actually like fixed time better than sacred occasion, but so what does that mean, though?
Rabbi, it says both.
It says both. Okay, good.
Fixed times of the
It says fixed time. All right, good. It says fixed time first, right? Your translation in 2b says fixed time?
These are my fixed times, the fixed times of the Eternal,
Good,
which
that's
you shall proclaim
perfect.
as sacred occasions.
Excellent. All right, perfect. Excellent. So what's a fixed time?
It's the same time.
Yes, it's a date on it's the date on the Hebrew calendar.
Right.
Which, by the way, is set in now in perpetuity, which is why we could tell you when Rosh Hashanah is going to be in 53 years. I could tell you the date of Rosh Hashanah, because it is a fixed time in the way that the construct of the Jewish calendar works, and the way that the Tanakh has pushed it into it, and it's all put together. I have an app for that. I can literally tell you in 53 years what the Torah portion is going to be. I can tell you what the holiday is going to be. I can tell you exactly what's going to happen. Because it's a fixed time, which is why everyone in the office always jokes with me when someone says the holidays are early or late this year. Everyone knows not to bring it up with me because my answer is going to be it's the same time every year. Right? Why is it the same time every year? Because it says it's the same time every year, because it's a fixed time. So what's interesting about time, though? Here is the beautiful thing about time. So if you have not read the book called The Sabbath, and I bring this up all the time, by Abraham Joshua Heschel, you must read the book. It's a deceptively small book. It's about 83 pages. And you think you just get through it. It takes a little longer than you think. because Abraham Joshua Heschel writes incredibly well, and he talks about the Sabbath as a fixed time. What's that? Yes. Yes. Yes, it's time rather than space, right? So what's the difference between time and space? What's the difference between time and space? Yeah, one is a physical, and time, you can't touch it. You can't touch time. But you can make time sacred, and this is where it's really set for us here. This idea of making time sacred is set here, which is why, by the way, and Shabbat's in here, so we'll talk about Shabbat. And you said Shabbat was in here, which we'll talk about, which is interesting. And Jonathan Sachs talks about it too. But it's the same thing about, and I bring this up all the time. It's like your birthday, right? Your birthday is a fixed time. It's every year. It's going to be. Now, it might be a Tuesday or a Wednesday, or it's going to be different, right? Sort of like it's early or late this year. It's going to be on a slightly different day. But your birthday is the same day. It's a fixed time. If I don't know what's your birthday, by the way, it's Howard's birthday. So today. But if I don't know what's your birthday, it's just the 6th of May. But if I know it's your birthday, then it becomes the time becomes special, right? And also, the people who know it's your birthday and like you and care about you and love you help to make that time special for you too. Otherwise, the time is just time. Otherwise, we would just sit here and not know it was Howard's birthday. But now that you know, maybe when we go, someone will say, happy birthday, because, see, thanks. Ron just said happy birthday. So, but because the time is special, right? I'm sure when he gets home, Sue will have baked 17 cakes, and there'll be streamers and a parade ready for you when you get there, right? No, okay, great. So, but the time is such a fascinating thing because God wants us to make it holy, make the time holy, which is fascinating, which is why we're in one of the most sacred time windows that exists, Shabbat, right? Because for the rest of the world, it's just Saturday. Yes?
I was just going to say, whenever one of my nieces or nephews or grandnieces has a birthday, I always call them, and you hear my voice. Well, when I sing it monotone, and I make up a little version, and it's just something that they come to expect, and it makes my day special too.
Yeah, exactly. It makes everyone's day, the time becomes special for you. That day becomes special for you, and everyone are connected because you want to celebrate with that person somehow. But for the rest of the world, no one knows because the time is just, boop, it doesn't matter. But that's the idea of this consecration of time in these fixed times. And then God says, what are you supposed to do on these fixed times? That's the last part of 2. What's the last part of 2? What are you supposed to do with them?
Proclaim them as sacred.
You're supposed to proclaim them as sacred occasions. So now everyone's supposed to be part of it. So everyone's supposed to be, this is why there's some things, that's why Rosh Hashanah is Rosh Hashanah. That's why Yom Kippur is Yom Kippur. Because you're supposed to, it's a sacred time, because God tells us it's sacred. So it's a sacred time. And everyone's supposed to, it's fixed, and it's sacred. That's why it's never early or late, because it's fixed. Right? And you make it a sacred occasion. Yeah. No. So no form of Judaism. The question was, does anyone currently in Judaism follow this exact instruction exactly the way it's written? The answer is no. Because this is the root, this is the foundation of everything, but we don't live a Torah Judaism, we live a rabbinic Judaism. So through the Mishnah and the Talmud, the rabbis interpret these things, and so we don't live literally according to Torah. We live in accordance with Torah, but we live in a rabbinic world. Right. So the reform movement, when it was in its inceptions, particularly wanted to make Shabbat more accessible, and they would put it on Sundays because they figured the community would appreciate that more because of Sundays, being a Christian day of Christian religious day. So it made sense. So yeah. So I've never would have been a Reform rabbi, by the way, if that was the case. But I cannot think of any Reform congregation does anything on Sunday at this point. The movement totally changed, though. Really, in the late '90s, the movement completely changed, and so there are what's called classical Reform congregations still, so that they're called classical Reform, and so they still have certain types of liturgy that they use. There's a lot more English, a lot less Hebrew. But as far as Sunday, I don't think there's any Reform synagogue anywhere that does it on Sunday anymore. I don't think so. Yeah?
When my cousin was going to be bar mitzvah, it was during the classical period, and the rabbi said you can't wear a tallis.
Yeah, exactly. So there were no talitot, there were no. So it's interesting, by the way. So when I started rabbinic school, it was just after the movement had put out a new set of what do they call it? Principles. It was called principles. It was the 1999 principles, and so and I joined the Reform. I became a Reform rabbi because of the new principles. I would not have become a Reform rabbi. So prior, if it was like 1996 and before, I would not have become. I probably would have been a conservative rabbi. But because the movement changed, and it says in the 99 principles, wear talitot, wear kippot, be closer to Israel, talk about kashrut. Like, you don't have to keep it exactly, but have it part of the conversation. Think about it. And so it drew me because this is a little bit how I grew up. And so it's interesting that when we showed up, so your first year of rabbinic schools in Jerusalem in the Reform movement at HUC, and then your second year stateside. So we arrived stateside, and I went to Los Angeles, and we sat down for our first service. We were second years. We sat down for our first service, and all of us opened up our talit bags and pulled out huge talitot and put them on. A few of us put on tefillin, and the fifth years, who really had not known the transition that much, were the fifth year rabbinic students were like, who are these aliens who just showed up and landed at the HUC? Because even in those 4 years, those rabbis grew up more in that sort of in that 1980s, because the 80s was also a transitional time in the movement, but they didn't know like the big talitot, and the people were putting tefillin on, women were putting tefillin on and had all this stuff, and people were like, oh, what's going on? So I remember that the people were shocked at HUC in Los Angeles, and they called us the talit class, because we showed up with like huge, we just came back from Jerusalem, so we got like the biggest possible, it was like a sheet. It's like a king-size sheet. All of us like pulled out huge, I still have my king-size sheet talitot. You remember those? The biggest one you could possibly purchase. Yeah. And you like wrap it, it's everywhere, all over you, and you're like swimming in it. And they were all freaked out. We're all freaked out because some of them were barely even wearing talit. Some of them weren't wearing talit, the rabbinic students. So, yeah. All right. So what Jonathan Sachs talks about here is this is not the first time that we talk about fixed times. It happens two other times. The first time happens actually in the book of Exodus, so we actually did it once. This is the second occurrence here, and there'll be a third occurrence in the book of Deuteronomy. So it mentions 3 times similar passages about fixed times. So it happens 3 times in text, but he says, unlike Exodus and Deuteronomy, the passages here include Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So this is the only occurrence in Emor that talk about Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which we'll see in a minute. And he goes on to say that Shabbat looks a little different here than it does in any of the other places. And he talks about that the structure of how Shabbat is mentioned is a little bit different. So let's look at verse 3. So it says on six days work may be done, but on the 7th day There shall be a Sabbath of complete rest, a sacred occasion. You shall not do work. It shall be a Sabbath of the Lord throughout your settlements. So what's interesting in the construct of 3? Anything in the that you notice in the construct of 3?
Well, Rabbi,
Yeah.
It says that you shall not work, what you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
But it doesn't say how you might observe Shabbat otherwise.
Okay.
Like, it's giving a negative but no positive.
Yes, nice. Okay, what I didn't bring, because I think we've done it before, I usually bring sometimes a sheet with us that has the 39 categories of work. Before, I think we've talked about it before. So, because the rabbis had the same question, what do you mean don't do work? What's work? Oh, how do I know if I'm working or not working? So the rabbis came up with something called the 39 melachot, which are the melacha. Melacha is work. It's a really cool idea because what's melach? That's melech. What's melach? Salt. So what's melacha then? Melacha is work. Why is work called melacha from the same root? Because it's like your sweat. So it's like your sweat. So it's the work. So it's called the 39 categories. So 39 melachot. These are the 39 categories of what are constituted as work. So if you're anything outside of those, it's Shabbat. If you're in those are work. And you get 39 categories. And some of them are ridiculous, like winnowing. You know what it means to winnow? It's like with the field, yeah. So it's like we're not. When's the last time? Did you go winnowing yesterday? No. So there's all kinds of things. But like there's for instance like you can't carry is one of them, which is why there's such thing as an eruv. There's things about there's things that say you can't extinguish a fire. You can't light a fire. You can't extinguish a fire. So extinguishing a fire is it doesn't say you can't drive a car. It just says that you can't light a fire. Starting a fire, exactly. So that's why. So nothing says you can't drive a car. You can't smoke because that's lighting a fire, right? So all these things fall. These are categories. See how they're categories. So as long as you are not within the category, you're clear. What's that? You can, but I still think there's a spark that you still need a fire, don't you, to start it? I think the electricity has to happen though. I think the electricity is a spark. Don't you need, when you charge it, that's still electricity. But that's electricity, that's still fire. That's still a spark. Isn't electricity? Electricity is fire. Yeah. It's not? Right, but but it's a little spark. Like we didn't start the fire. Thank you very much. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for jumping in. I was waiting, and I appreciate it. Yes. What about electricity, though, for your lights? What's that? But there's still a spark when you turn on you flip the switch. But you cause it. I'm saying, but you cause a spark. If you cause it, you're lighting a fire. What's that? Right, but when you turn the switch on in your house, that's a fire. Well, but aren't you turning on a switch somewhere? You have to, something that has to ignite to cause electricity. It's always flowing. There's a thing but you're controlling it, right? Because you're stopping the flow and you're starting the flow. So you can't do that. This is why, by the way, traditional Jews can't use electricity on Shabbat, or they have timers which do it for them. Right, I'm not too good at math. The same thing is true with an elevator. Why can't you go in an elevator? Why can't you press the button in an elevator? That's why there are such things as Shabbat elevators. What's that? Exactly. Well, you're pushing a button, but what does the button do? Nothing says you can't push a button. That's still okay. It still goes into the control of electricity in some way. Yeah. Nothing says push. Nothing says push in the 39 categories. You can't carry. You can't carry anything unless you're in the Eruv. I'm saying, yeah, this is all in the 39 categories. But this is the conversation. Yeah.
I was given an explanation or telling us something we couldn't do on Shabbat. If we only liked the green M&Ms, we had to separate them before Shabbat. Because what would that be under?
I don't know. Oh, there is a separating, so I guess categorically that would fall under the thing. I suppose it is under the 39 categories, so it does fall under that. Sort of as tearing, by the way, which is the same thing as about toilet paper, which is you can't tear toilet paper. So that's also under the category. All of this comes from this. So yeah. Absolutely. But we live by that, though. We don't live by this. We live by what the rabbis created. Of course. Of course. Of course. Of course. Well, we are making informed choices, but there are still Orthodox people and more traditional people who still will still be careful and cautious of all of this. Yes. This is how we interpret this. Yeah. And now we as Reform Jews interpret it pretty much as but the same is true of the Bill of Rights, Declaration of Independence. Men wrote that, and we still abide by it in some variation, and we interpret it ourselves also. So it's the same. It's conceptually that same idea of men wrote it, and we still agree with it and like it, right? In some ways, or we don't, and then we argue it. And then we play with it, and we have lawyers, and we move it around, and we pull it, and we pull it, and we pull it. So we pull it, and we push it. So conceptually, it's the same concept, though. But we agree that the rabbis, whatever they wrote, is how we're going to live in Judaism. Moses didn't have toilet paper. That poor guy had to, whatever. That poor guy had to. That was a lot of. Yes, save us. It just it stops on every floor. That's all it does. So you're walking. So because you don't have to press any buttons, you don't have to worry about the electricity, you don't have to do anything. You're just walking. And I happen to walk into a box, and the box moves. But I'm not touching it, or I'm not making it do that. I'm just walking. So a Shabbat elevator, which, by the way, if you're living in a beautiful hotel in Jerusalem that's on the 22nd floor, you have a long evening after your Shabbat experience. Because you're going to be, you get on the ground floor, you're going to just, I happen to be walking into a box, and that box happened to elevate me and move and close and open, and I walked into my room. So, right. Well, you have a real problem. You do that in the lobby before you go upstairs. But it depends how much Kiddush wine you had at celebration before. But yeah, now we're talking. Yeah, go ahead. Right, there's a sign that says Shabbat elevator, which is the one I do not use, because unless I'm on the second floor and it's fun, I take the stairs. But yeah, so yes. Total joke. I guess Fred Flintstone could drive. Absolutely, Fred Flintstone has got this down. Yeah, he can. Yeah. Yes. That's amazing.
You taught me that Shabbat, because I was all confused once we started doing stuff. And then you basically said, you just have to know that it's Shabbat. Like, once you know it's Shabbat,
Yes, wasn't my term. That's Abraham Joshua Heschel. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just eased it. It made it so much easier for me because, again, when I was reading all the stuff, it kind of gets you all scared. And then I believe that Cantor once said, like just in passing, you said to him, like, what are you doing today? You know, and you said, are you just going to do like gardening or something like that? And I'm like, oh, okay, you're allowed to do this. You know what I mean? Like some of the things that you read here.
This was back to the topic of the Reform movement and how we interpret it, how we interpret what Shabbat is. Yeah, it's the palace is the palace, but that's not me. That's Abraham Joshua Heschel because he talks about a palace in time. He wants us. Heschel says on Shabbat, build a palace in time. Hence the fixed time concept. Spend the 25 hours in your palace. What happens in your palace is probably what I said. Is up to you in the Reform movement. A more traditional person's palace will be very different than your palace. His palace is to do gardening or whatever he does. So whatever. So, but sure, gardening is fine. As long as you're acknowledging that you're doing it and you're counting it as Shabbat. That you're observing Shabbat, right? The Veshamru says, Veshamru v'nei Yisrael. It says, do Shabbat. As long as you're doing it consciously, that I'm choosing to do this because it's Shabbat, that this can be anything in the Reform movement. I'm not speaking for other movements, but as long as you're acknowledging that this thing that you're doing is Shabbat, maybe you have decided as a family that you always go to the movies. As a family, it differentiates the rest of the week for us. Make it special, different, and unique. According to the Reform movement, you are observing Shabbat in the proper way. All right, great. It wasn't me, it's Heschel, but yes.
I think a lot of it has to do with what you bring to it. For example, for Cantor, doing some gardening is a pleasure. He enjoys it.
Yes, for me it would be a torture.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
That would not be a Shabbat activity
No.
that I would want to do.
Right. That would follow my Shabbat activity of screaming, because that's what I would do. I would scream on Shabbat if you made me do gardening. But yes. So yes.
So what if someone needs to work and is a nurse or doctor or caregiver or a first responder?
Or a rabbi or a cantor.
Okay, so you're working, quote unquote.
So we aren't working. So that's the category. We're not working. This isn't work. So this is part of what we do. This is part of the choice of our lifestyle and what we do. This isn't work. So it falls under a category. Now, if you must do it for your livelihood, it gets more complicated because now you must work on Shabbat. There are conversations about ways around that you can still fulfill Shabbat, but you have to work. For someone who's more traditional, it's more difficult because it's eating at them, but surviving is more important than anything else. So if you must do things to survive, to put food on your table, because otherwise there literally won't be food on your table, then it's a different conversation. So you can abandon Shabbat, by the way, for a lot of things. Well, yeah. Well, three things you can really abandon Shabbat. So, well, yeah, there are. Yeah, I guess there are other categories. There are categories. Yeah, for saving a life, you can change. There's a lot of things to stay alive. You abandon Shabbat. There's a lot of categories. So, yeah. So there are three things. It's the opposite actually. There are three things that you. There are three things that you actually. It's different. It's about. Yeah, I'll leave it. I'll leave it. It's gonna. I'm sorry. It was. There are three things that you're supposed to actually choose death over than anything else. That's what I was thinking about. So meaning anything else you should figure it out, but three things you actually choose death over. So that's idol worship. It's murder. and adultery. So those three things. So if someone says to you, this is in Judaism, right? If you either you die or you murder someone, you die. You pick death. If you say you worship idols or I'll kill you, you choose death. And if someone says you must commit adultery or you die, you pick death. Those are the three. So I was miscategorizing those things. But you break Shabbat. But Shabbat is really just pikuach nefesh. That's just saving a life. That's the general category. And then you can go into details about that. But the famous one that we always learn in school is that, you know, I probably told you before, is the woman who's pregnant. The story of the woman who's pregnant, and the husband drives her because she goes into labor in the middle of Shabbat, and they go to the hospital, and he gets in the car and he drives her because they live 20 miles away from the hospital or whatever, and then he parks the car and opens the door and walks away, and the attendant says, you have to move your car, and he says, I can't, right? I can't move the car because I broke Shabbat because I've saved my life. My wife is here and we're here, so do whatever you want with the car. He left the car running. He left the door open. He's like, I'm walking away from it. So you do whatever you want with the car. So, yeah. Oh no. Yeah, we're gonna. The reform movement, abortion is too far away from our conversation. I will say it's the same as Judaism in general, and then we're going to skip the conversation from here. Is that it's all about the it's all about the mother. The mother is most important. In all cases, it's always about the mother. So that's throughout any Reform, conservative, Orthodox conversation, and there are nuances and whatever. But we're not talking. Yes. Great question for not now, because we are too far off the path. Are you on the path or a different path? Great. Just so finish up, and then we'll come back on the path, and then we'll end. Go ahead. Yes. Great. That's kind of the path. Yes. If there are two books you have not read yet, I recommend them for every single Jewish person, and that is The Sabbath, which is by Abraham Joshua Heschel, and another book called As a Driven Leaf by Milton Steinberg. Read those two books. Those are the most important books. If you're going to read two books, those are the two most important books. Yes?
I'm not sure if it was.
And the Tanakh. You know, that one's first. Sorry. Start with that one, and then the other two are second. I probably should have mentioned that first. Read the Hebrew Bible, and then the other two. Yeah.
I think it was last night. You hinted at something about saying, is Shabbat a moed?
Yes. So, thank you. Back to Heschel. I don't know why you didn't bring us back to Heschel. I mean, bring us back to Sachs. I know. I'm just kidding. I know. So what Sachs is saying is that it's interesting that in this Torah portion, Shabbat is put in with the word moed, which is a bit of a holiday, which is interesting because the conversation, which I thought we might have, which we did not have because they veered off in different directions, is should Shabbat be in the same category as Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Pesach, and Shavuot? Okay, good. So why no and why yes? This is what Sachs was asking. What's that? Okay, so there is a phrase that the more frequent, the more holy. So what's the most holy then? Shabbat. Okay, so we got that out of the way. But should Shabbat be in the category with the other holidays? And I got yeses and no. So who said no? You said no. Yeah? You said yes, you said no. You said no. Why did you say no? Okay. Who says yes? Yes. Why do you say yes? Cantor.
Because it's a fixed time.
It is a fixed time. That's true. It is a fixed time, so it falls into the fixed time category. Right? Nice. Nice. Any other? I heard other yeses, but now no one's saying a yes or a no. Yes. Tell me why yes, or no, or whatever you're saying.
I think no, because.
Okay.
I know my Orthodox in-law family, they would do things that they wouldn't on Shabbat, but they would do, not, I don't know if it's cooking or, there's something they would do on the holidays that they wouldn't do on Shabbat. I can't remember the Hebrew word.
Okay. All right.
You didn't pay attention to me.
No, I was listening, but you didn't finish your statement. I was listening.
So they were able to do certain things
Yeah.
on Yom Tov, but not on Shabbat.
Yes. So there are. So yeah, Shabbat prohibits you from everything, essentially. The moed, depending on the window of the moed and what it is, you can do some carrying. You can do some transfer of fire if you need to. If one's already lit, you can transfer some fire. There's some other stuff that just some nuances. So there are nuances that exist between Shabbat practice and Chag or Moed practice. Yes. Okay. What's special? Which one? Shabbat. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Right, from the more liberal perspective, true, everyone's practice is different for Shabbat. If you go into an ultra-Orthodox neighborhood, everyone's practice of Shabbat is the same, essentially. Yes?
I think, I'm not sure, I think it says in the Torah,
Well, it does say in Jewish text and commentary that, like I said, the more frequent, the more holy, and then Shabbat has the win, clearly, because it's every week. So, yes, yeah. Yeah. The more confused you get. The more I come to the synagogue, the more confused I get about Judaism. Excellent. That is the plan. Yes, that is the exact plan, what we have for you. Ha, ha, ha. That's right. You come here, and that's confusing to begin with. Oh, by the way, bonus starting on June 10th. We're going back to 9 o'clock for the summer. So there's a special gift. So summer hours starting on June 10. I think it's June 10 is a Saturday. So whatever that Saturday is, right around then. So we're going to do the bonus 30 minutes for you through August, through the sort of end of August. So before I forget. All right. We're coming in a different way. Nice. Yes, come in a different way in May. Yeah, exactly. Why? That's right. I get to spend more time with you. It's true, which is true. I should love. I should love coming here. So. Yes, we get to hear the cantor's lovely voice. That was so nice. No, but you get a cookie if you want an oneg. An oneg. Yes.
So what's your interpretation? Is it normally or yes or no?
So Sachs, by the way, goes on this gigantic roller coaster and ultimately says at the end, he says, he's so funny. He says, we can't always be spiritual. God has given us a material world with which to engage. But on the seventh day of the week, and originally 7 days in the year, God gives us dedicated time in which we feel the closeness of the Shekhinah, that's the feminine presence of God, and are bathed in the radiance of God's love. That is how he ends it, and so he doesn't really answer his own question because he's so good. But he goes on to say, by the way, the word moed doesn't just mean appointed time. So we find the same word in the phrase like ohel moed, which is, right, the tent of meeting. So he goes on to say that a moed isn't just about a fixed time. It can also have perhaps a place feeling also, like an ohel moed. So he goes on to say that too. But that's for us to decide. How do I get here? Most importantly, in the Torah portion is for us to I don't know where I am here. I'm in the wrong book of the Torah. Most importantly is for us, I think, to think about those opening lines, the idea that we all have fixed times and that our job is to celebrate that fixed time however we want. However we want to do it. It's up to each and every one of us to celebrate that fixed time. What we didn't get to, by the way, in continuation in chapter 23 is Rosh Hashanah is mentioned. If you're interested to look at it, it's on page 20, as on verse 23, so 23, chapter 23, verse 23, there's Rosh Hashanah. Yom Kippur starts on verse 26 in the same chapter. And it compares it to the observance of Yom Kippur. Sounds, if you look at verse 26, sounds a little like Shabbat-y. It sounds Shabbat-y, so it's included in there. And then starting there in verse 33, we get to Sukkot. And then you get, and this is the only occurrence, by the way, I'm pretty sure, I think Sachs says it too, the only occurrence of the objects that we use for Sukkot is in this week's Torah portion. Right? What are the objects? What are the four things that we use on Sukkot? The lulav, etrog, the myrtle, and the willow. Good job, everyone. All right, good. So so those are the four things, and they're all mentioned in this week's in this week's Torah portion as well. And then the last part of the Torah portion, which we also didn't get to, is the line that says eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. That whole section is in here too. I'll leave us with you thinking about these fixed times and how we can elevate those fixed times for us, maybe religiously and Jewishly showing up here, but also even when we leave here from our service, to just make this day special. Like, how do we make Shabbat special? Yeah.
Out of such a variety of themes and ideas, what did the bat mitzvah girl choose to focus on?
Tonight, it's a different Torah portion because it switches in the afternoon. So there's no bat mitzvah. There's a bat mitzvah today, but it's for next week. So she's talking about Behar. So she's talking about the last Torah portion in the book because it switches in the afternoon. So yeah, she didn't talk about it. Yes. Oh, well, I switched the time for the Torah portions, you mean? Oh, because it's just summertime, and there are no b'nai mitzvah. So we don't have to worry about the time interfering with the bar bat mitzvah. So it's going to be at 9 o'clock because we'll have nothing all summer. No, hot locations usually don't have summer break. So there are a few congregations, I think, in the colder climates that sprinkle, but most people don't do them in the summer because people aren't around. So it's more of a summer break thing than a Jewish thing. But the Torah portions will be rolling, and we'll be studying. But the B'nai Mitzvah just don't come on Shabbat in the summer. Yeah. We're in the Omer. We're still in the Omer until Shavuot. Yeah, we're still there. Yeah, we're still counting the Omer. Yeah. Yeah. Huh. It's how important it is to have that fixed time for us to celebrate. So we should end our fixed time by telling Howard happy birthday again. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
It was Susie's birthday this week also. That's right. This week was Susie's birthday.
Today's another fixed time.
It's the first Saturday in May. Oh, the Kentucky Derby is right. That's right. Yes, yesterday. Yes, and the Heat are playing, and so that's a fixed time. Yesterday was Cinco de Mayo. There was a lot going on. That was a fixed time. Cinco de Mayo is a fixed time because it's Cinco de Mayo. So, what's that? For the kids, you mean?
Yeah, for the holidays.
Either early or late. It's usually end of the crowd. Yeah. So if there's like a June or July birthday, then either they try and, because we'll usually go into like that the middle of June for services, and then they either pick in August. They pick in August. The one that they do on that right date, like on the date that they do it, not the one that would correspond to the one that's, unless they're really want to. I mean, I feel like if someone came to us and said,
Rarely any bar mitzvah student does their birthday Torah portion.
yeah,
Unless
very
the
rarely.
bar mitzvah is on their birthday.
But we wouldn't be opposed to it. I mean, if someone said to us, my kid's birthday is July, blah, 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 and we want to have a service, we would do it. We would do it, for sure. Just most of the time, since I've been a rabbi, I mean, kids are at camp and they're away or they're going away. It's really just a time thing than a. Which is really funny you say that, because a lot of kids who go to Jewish summer camps don't know that much about Torah, except for Torah portions that occur over the summer, because they're at Jewish summer camp. So they hear all the ones about you can ask a summer camp kid about Korach, because it's always in the summer. You know how the earth opens and all the Jewish summer camp kids know about that. All those Jewish summer kids know about the talking donkey, because it's Shrek, exactly. So all of these fall in the summer. So if you ask Jewish summer camp kids, I'll end with this, and then we'll really end. Is that it's so? I'll go back to Phoenix. So we had a camp Torah. It lived at a summer camp, and literally we kept it at one section. We never moved it because we never needed to, because we only use it in the summer. It started around the same time, it ended around the same time, over and over. So the whole beginning part of the scroll was never scrolled. It was literally in that one spot, year after year after year. We had to use it for some reason, for something else. There was something else going on, and so we had to scroll it. And it was like a retreat at camp or something. And it was in December, or it was in November. We had to scroll it all the way back for the first time. And it was, first of all, it was really weird for us. But second of all, I still have it in my notes in my phone somewhere. It was such an unkosher Torah. Half a section of a book was missing in the scroll. Someone had missewn the pages. I had never seen that before in my life. And it was on the Shabbat that we were there. And I was chanting Torah. And I went from one column to another, and it wasn't there. And I was like, it's not possible. And I had the Torah book in front of me, so I knew what I was reading, and I found that it was like 5 or 6 Torah portions that were missing in that book, and we'd never known, because it was only looking at the back half of that Torah, and we used that Torah at summer camp. We never knew until that one time. So we marked it, and we marked it, and we use it in the summers. It's fine. And it's also okay because clearly it was unkosher Torah, duh, but it's okay to have an unkosher Torah at summer camp, because that thing gets beaten up all the time. It gets beaten up at Jewish summer camps. So I don't want to tell you how many times it probably falls. So the kids and the thing, and I don't know. It gets pushed around, and it's weathered and whatever. So, but yeah. So I actually have the citation of the verses that were missing. Torah is still in front of us. Let's think of those in our community who are in need of healing, physical, emotional, or spiritual healing. If you're thinking of someone and you want to share their name, please share their name at this time. Is anyone on there?
Just Ian.
Okay, Ian. Anyone from Mishaberach, Ian?
No, I'm okay, thank you.
Okay. Hi, Ian.
Hi, everybody. Francie Freeman, David Freeman, Jack Hanna.
Shelley Anderson. They came,
William Buck, Rivka, Harriet Pearson, and Nova, Sarah Dove, Sandy Kim Andrews, Rivka Kaya Batleya, Rabbi Larry Silver, Judy McLean, Andy Sussman.
משבח אבותינו ואמותינו אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, שרה, רבקה, רחל ולאה, וברך את החולים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ימלא רחמים עליהם, לחמם ולפותם, להחזיקם, וישלח להם מהרה רפואה שלמה מן השמיים, רפואת הנפש ורפואת הגוף, השתה בגלה זמן קריב, ונאמר אמן. May the one who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill. May the blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored, and for their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. As together we say, Amen. We're going to return the Torah to the Ark, 256, and together we stand.
Hallelu et Shem Adonai ki niskav shemo levado odo al eretz v'shamayim vayarem keren le'amo tehila lechol chasidav livnei Yisrael am kerovo Hallelujah Hallelujah. Eitz chaim hi lama chazikim ba v'tomcheha meushar diracheha darchei noam v'chol netivoteha Shalom, Hashivenu Adonai, Elecha v'nashuva, Chadesh, Chadesh Yameinu, Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem.
What announcements do we have? We have
Disney Shabbat.
Disney Shabbat is next Friday. That's right. Join us for it's full regular tefillah, but to the tunes of Disney, and I think there's a Disney themed oneg afterwards. So it might be worth it just to come for a little Disney themed oneg. So that's next week. Shavuot is not that far away. Our adult Benot Mitzvah is on the 8th of June. Love to have you come to that service. It's going to be a beautiful service, Shabbat morning. Love to have you for that. That's June 8th. We have our Erev Shavuot service. We have an Erev Shavuot service this year and a Shavuot morning service, because Erev Shavuot is going to be our confirmation service. So you're welcome to come to join us for Erev Shavuot as well. Erev Shavuot's going to be on Erev Shavuot, since it's a fixed time. The choir is
The 19th.
yeah. Yes. Aleinu. Is that it? We don't have anything else, right? I don't think there's no. All right, Aleinu. Oh, and we have a bunch of summer stuff. So we'll talk to you soon about summer stuff. But we'll have our coffee and conversations are going to be over the summer. So we'll have a couple of those too for us to be meeting, and all three clergy will be participating. Rabbi Silver's remaining of his class, I think, are coming up. That's also in May. So this Wednesday, yeah. So that's coming up, right? So Rabbi Silver's class is coming, yeah. Aleinu, 282.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגאור עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים, ומשתחווים ומודים, לפני מלך
הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא
יהיה אדוני אחד.
ושמו אחד. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, who have died this year and this season, this year's past, and those who we draw into our hearts with our own zichronam livracha. May their memories be for a blessing. Our yortzites this week: Alvin Kanegas, Leonard Lifton, Malcolm Pierce, Irving Breakstone, Alfred Fuldauer, Max Dolan, Libby Reisman, Ruth Usheroff, David Goldsmith. To those names, we had any name that you would like to add at this time. Kadisha Tom 294. Yitkadal v'kadash me rabah, v'amad yivrach riuteh, v'amlich malchuteh, b'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, b'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabah mevorach leolam ulmei almaya, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה על שמי לקודשה בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel. As together we say, Amen. Please be seated. We conclude on this Shabbat morning with
Ein Keloheinu on page 322.
322.
Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Micheloheinu, Michadonenu, Michemalkeinu, Michemoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu.
May God give strength unto our people, continue to bless us with hope and strength and love and peace. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.